Hello and welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast, sponsored by NordVPN. If you want to sign up to NordVPN and get the best discount code available, you can do so using the link in the description down below. I'm your host for this one, Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley at Poddymore Heath on a bank holiday Monday, which not only is the whole office quiet and empty, the whole building's empty. We had to get security to buzz us in. It's very eerie, very weird. One bonus, train was lovely and quiet. There was about 3 people on it. How are you, mate? Everything okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. Not great getting up for like 7 a.m. on a bank holiday, but it's all good. I'm doing fine, thanks, Dan. Yeah, obviously a frustrating defeat for us on Sunday, but as we'll get on to, it's of no consequence, basically. So, positive vibes from me today.
Good, I like that. We did the post-match show yesterday. I did it with Neil, and I felt like death. I'm slightly better today, but last night I was not feeling it at all. And the comments were rolling in that Villa have blown it, Villa have bottled it, Villa have bottled jobs and all this, and it was kind of frying my head that, no, come on, like, this was before Spurs. Spurs had just kicked off, but it was still 0-0 at that point. And I was like, Spurs could literally lose within the next hour and a half. Like, let's just wait and see. I go 3-0 down, and I'm thinking, there we go, happy days. They won't come back into this. Obviously finishes 4-2 in the end, but defeat's a defeat. Mm-hmm. And we are no further back than we were before Friday. Yeah. If anything, we're further ahead.
Kind of in a better position now, yeah.
They've got one worse goal difference than they did at the start of the weekend, and one less game to catch us.
Yeah, precisely. As I say, there was no consequence to us losing the game, which I thought there probably would be, actually.
Did you think Spurs were going to get something there?
Well, I think us losing would have given them something a bit more.
Spurred them on.
But then at the same time, Spurs play one way, so it's almost doesn't matter how much they're up for a game. If their game plan is flawed against a team like Liverpool, which it absolutely was, then they're going to lose the game. And Ange even said after the match, like, actually we played some good football today. But I think that's worrying because that was one of their better performances, and they had some good passages. But Liverpool finished the game themselves at 4-0 and then thought, okay, we'll just we'll relax for a bit and give Spurs a couple of goals. So not good from Tottenham at all. We know the permutations now. It's absolutely still in Villa's hands to get top 4, and I'd be completely shocked if we don't, put it that way. It feels like a matter of time. Just hope it's done before the final day, which the likelihood of it being done before the final day is pretty high. So
I've still got a cough, and there'll be some that I will not be able to edit out if John's talking, so we're going to have to deal with it. Apologies for that. Permutations are as follows for me, without breaking it down too massively going into the final day. How Villa get into the Champions League? First game in the run is Burnley play Spurs. If Burnley win, Villa are in the Champions League. If Spurs win, it moves on to the next game, which is Villa against Liverpool. If Villa win, Villa are in the Champions League. If we don't, Man City play on the Tuesday against Spurs after we play the Monday Night Football. Yeah. If Man City win, Villa are in the Champions League. Those are the first 3 to contend with before you even get to the final day. Yeah. And if things haven't gone our way till that point, you will still probably only be relying on Villa lose on the last day and Spurs have to win against Sheffield United, and they've won the 2 games before. It's still a very, very difficult job for Spurs to do, and as I've said all along, I don't think they'll do it. Yeah,
and if you put yourself in Spurs' shoes, you're thinking, well, we could win against Burnley and then beat City, but Villa could just beat Palace on the final day. For us, that's a bit more nerve-wracking, I suppose. It's if we had to win on the final day, that is. But that's still like a massive mental block for Tottenham, I think.
Yeah,
it's an almighty task for Tottenham to do it from here. And I mean, if I was to predict how it goes, and this is being kind of nice on Tottenham, I think they beat Burnley. They could get a draw against City, and then they'll beat Sheffield. Again, we could just beat Liverpool, beat Palace, and it's done. But that puts...
in that scenario, where we only need a point anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
That gets them to 67.
I think, to be honest, I think if Tottenham don't beat Burnley by more than 1 or 2 goals, I think it's pretty much... Because I can't see them beating City. Because they would have to beat Burnley. If we don't get any points, Tottenham would have to beat Burnley and Sheffield by 9-goal swing, is it? Something like that. So unless we get...
if we lost 5-0 to Liverpool and they beat Burnley 3-0, it's done.
We're going into kind of the details of it when, as you say, at the top of the permutation segment, it's on us. Like, if we just win one of our games, it's done. If Tottenham don't beat City, I think for me it's done really then. So yeah, and it's interesting as well. Obviously, we play Liverpool on the Monday night. There'll be a cracking atmosphere there. We'll want to do it on the day at Villa Park, with all the fans. But then if it doesn't happen, well, then the next night it can happen. So Yeah, Monday and the Tuesday of next week. That will be, I think that will be when it's done. One of those 2 days.
Agreed. Yeah, it'd be lovely if we do it ourselves and then we get to celebrate it in the stadium by having beat Liverpool on the Monday. But if we don't, and Man City win on the Tuesday, job's done, and we're in the top 4. We'll already know, obviously, by next week. Yeah, Liverpool is a week today. We'll already know by then whether we've got through in Europe or not, as well, or whether that Liverpool game is the game to kind of be concerned about. So yeah, we're in the latter parts of the season now. Only 3 games left, potentially 4. Let's get into the questions then. I'm sure we'll go over some of these talking points ourselves anyway. Dan and Chris, first of all. Dan first says, finishing top 4 would be an incredible achievement. However, we are, in my opinion, nowhere near Champions League level. So what do we need to do in the summer to get us to that level? And Chris says, let's say we've qualified for the Champions League. You're Unai Emery, John, and you get to bring in 4 players to help strengthen us for the upcoming season. What positions are you bolstering and what players would you like to see through the door? Now,
I'm not doing
the specific players, we're not going to do that now because that needs thinking time. But positions, I think, is something a lot more feasible. So the first point, we've said a long time, and this is a hill I'm willing to die on, the kind of idea that we're not ready for Champions League yet, so we're going to get battered every week. So, we have got a transfer window in between now and then to sort some of that. We'll have players returning from injury that will help sort that as well. We've got one of the best managers in the world at navigating European football. So, yes, while we're not ready just yet, we're not playing in the Champions League tomorrow. We'll be playing in 6 months or whatever it is. 4 positions then. Are you going to just say a goalkeeper, a defender, a midfielder and a forward?
Yeah, that would
and move on to the next question.
4 positions. I've said this before, I would like us to add a player in every position, if I'm being totally honest. I just think the reason why we're lagging at the end of the season, and I think, to be honest, the reason why we have a question, which, absolutely fine, about are we ready? Well, a few months ago we were in a title race, and we absolutely were ready to be competing against anyone because we beat Man City and Arsenal in the space of a few days. We are absolutely good enough, but there's a kind of a negative perception, I think, at the moment because we're lagging towards the end. We're kind of stumbling over the line, which I don't see as negative. This was going to happen. Villa were never going to be as they were at the start of the season or midway through or whatever. 53 games we've played already, which is 53 games.
Spurs have played 37, I think.
To kind of increase the chances of us being able to, I don't know, sticking power, I suppose is that word, our stickability in the Premier League next year of being around the top 6, that sort of position, will be because when we get more injuries, when we have fatigue, we can bring on another player for Leon Bailey or another player for Morgan Rogers, or because we see when Rogers comes off, we bring on Matty Cash, who is a right back, and then that swaps Bailey over to the left when Bailey is much more productive on the right because that's his best position. That's the kind of thing that really changes or can change the outcome of a season, because we've dropped points against Brighton, where I think if we had a few more players in the squad who could come in and make a difference, I think we would have won against Brighton. If I'm being honest, I know we were lucky not to concede before John McGinn put the ball in the net when he was offside, but we were really a heel away from winning that game. And I know that's being very positive, but it kind of adds to my point of, if we had a few more fresh players who are ready to come in, who have got experience, I don't think we would have lost that game. And that goes throughout the whole season, dropping points elsewhere as well. For me, honestly, any position, I'm not going to look at one single position and think, that has to happen. I would also say that outgoings as well will be crucial to that. What's the situation with Luca Dean, Diego Carlos? Obviously high earners. Villa's wage turnover is 91 or 92%, which must be up there as one of, if not the highest in Europe, I would have thought. It's huge. That needs to come down. And then how do you replace them or replenish the squad as well? Because the bench that we had against Brighton, that's not. We shouldn't be. We shouldn't be competing where we are based on some of the options that we've had in this season, and we know why, because of injuries and whatnot. But even Brighton, I thought that their bench was better than they had better options than us, or I said better, but more options, more things to change the game, and they've got as many injuries as what we have. They're probably the one club who can make an argument that they've had it worse than Villa in terms of injuries. I'd go as far as to saying, because they have been hit badly, and the way they play, they need those players. It's exactly the same situation for us. So, obviously De Zerbi referenced that as well. So my answer to that, it's a long answer, but anywhere. We just need to bolster the squad. I think that's so crucial, and I understand people will be saying, but we need to spend this 50 million quid here and then 50 million there. Firstly, we don't know if we'll have the capacity to do that. Secondly, what if those players get injured? Who comes on for the...
there's no guarantee of success for that, is there?
The group of players that we've got now have proven that they're ready to play at the highest level. They are playing at the highest level. They've hopefully going to finish fourth this season. They could have finished higher if their teammates had stayed fit. So we've proven that we have a lot of quality there already. Yes, we have to add quality, but I think it's more important that we give them support as well, in terms of you don't have to play 35 games in a season for 90 minutes, 4,000 minutes in a season. I think 4 players have played more than 4,000 minutes, which is just mind-blowing. That shouldn't be the case. Hopefully next season they will have more rest.
I saw some stat on Twitter about John McGinn's playing time, and obviously he had the suspension for us as well.
Yeah.
But for Villa and Scotland in the last, I think it was since the season started, so it's like 290 days or something. He's averaging a match in either international level or Villa every 4 days or something for the course of 9 months. That's not sustainable.
That's not sustainable at all. And that's what causes injuries, and not just a niggle. It can cause, proper I don't know, whatever it may be. But that's the sort of thing that players need to be playing less games. And I understand all the calls from the PFA to say that this is too much, because it is. Like I've said before, that players can play 2 games. That's it's a myth that they can't. 2 games in a week, sorry. But now we're adding another 2 games in the Champions League. There's a Club World Cup happening. There's so much now that they're adding to the schedule. International breaks aren't going anywhere. It was about at its limit, because they can do what they've been doing, because it's been happening for a while, but now they're adding more. This is our first year in Europe as well, and we've had very little support. We have a very thin squad considering the amount of games that we're playing. I just hope in the summer that we'll be able to beef that out. And for example, Mauro Hermoso, the Spanish defender, that's one player that could come in. I mean, Lenglet's going back to Barcelona. Highly doubt Villa would then recruit him on a permanent basis. You've got Mings then hopefully being fit in pre-season, but where's he going to be at? We don't know. So Hermoso left-footed, Torres left-footed, Mings, you've got real depth there. What happens with Carlos? This is just talking about in defence. There's a lot of decisions across all positions, but
we will do a whole separate podcast about who stays, who goes, kind of thing, from our opinion at least.
You can add as well, because we're in the Champions League, you can add volume and also increase quality as well. For example, I'm just using Hermoso as an example. He plays for Atletico Madrid. He's a good player, very good player. He's experienced. He's got quality. We don't just have to add a player because they're a body. He's a free agent. It's a little cost there. I know, wages, etc. But there's opportunities for us to pursue, and Monchi will be the guy to get over the line. And again, if we get Champions League, we are the 4th most attractive club then in the Premier League in terms of players wanting to sign. We've also got Unai Emery. Players will want to sign for him. So. I'm in a happy place basically with what I think is going to happen in the summer. Whereas other people might be thinking, but how much money have we got? Do we have to sell players? Well, I just think come the end of the summer we'll be in a good position. Agreed.
Yeah. You mentioned that Brighton bench. I've got it in front of me here, and this, to be fair, it's better than some of the ones we've seen with Moreno back on it. Gauchi, Cash, Moreno, Chambers, Lenglet, Duran, Kessler-Hayden, Irabunum, and Kellyman. Now we're kind of used to seeing a threadbare bench for Villa.
That's been the bench for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean. You see our first 11 and go, that's pretty good. But beyond that, there's very little for us to change the game with there. And it's not as simple as this. But if you have all the players available back into that squad, you've obviously got Martinez didn't play against Brighton, so Gauchi or Olsen is out of it, kind of thing. You've got Mings being there, Buendia being there, Kamara, Ramsey. Morgan Rogers obviously started the game, but now he's injured, so that's an option. Tielemans. That bench then suddenly looks much stronger where you go, but they've got a good squad.
Oh yeah.
And obviously everyone's going to get injured over the course of the season. We'll have injuries next season as well. Douglas Luiz has not had an injury this year. John McGinn hasn't. Somebody else hasn't. I think there was 4 players. Watkins. I've got a list actually. We'll get to it in a bit of players games missed. Some of that will happen again next season, but if even 3 or 4 of those players are back and fit, that bench is much more ready to go. That squad can compete. a few additions over the summer, a few changes in terms of personnel, and I think Villa will be absolutely fine.
Yeah, the squad. I don't.
So
I'm
it's
not
not a bad squad.
I'm not of the.
The fact we are where we are when we've had to deal with that bench for a long time is mind blowing.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to it that we're not ready. I think we absolutely are ready.
Agreed. Yeah.
With this current team, as I said, the one that played against Brighton, obviously know that isn't going to compete the same level as what we had next season. But that also isn't going to be the case because you said then we're going to bring players back. I'm highly confident that we'll sign a holding midfielder who can come in for Kamara when he's injured and battle for positions. You can take players off on 70 minutes if you need to in games. Like this is what the top clubs do. I remember for years I've been saying that if you look at Tottenham's bench or Liverpool's bench or basically any team that's been playing the Champions League that isn't Leicester or whoever else, is kind of muddled with it. But all the top teams, their bench, you think, wow, I'm surprised that those players will want to sit on a bench for any team. Even someone like Lo Celso, for example, like he should be playing football elsewhere, and I don't think he's happy to be sitting on the bench. But they've got him on the bench. These top teams can afford to do it because those players know that they'll be getting minutes in the Champions League. Yeah. They're probably on a decent wage. They're working under a top manager. They're enjoying playing for that club because they're playing at the highest level and having experiences playing in Europe, all of that stuff. That's where Villa are now. So I'm excited and enthused to see where our squad is at in the summer. As I say, I'm all for us signing some exciting players and spending money if we can. But I'd be more happy with just seeing a squad that proves to me that, all right, if this player gets injured, this one comes in. Yeah. This player gets it, and the level of the squad isn't so. It's not so different, and that has been the case this season, I think, for a large part because we have been consistent. But you look at the bench, and again, for the Brighton game for me is a case in point of we looked knackered, we had nothing to change the game, and I think some mistakes were made because we were tired and we were fatiguing. One player gets injured, and we have to change our whole, not system, but as I say, Bailey goes left. Well, that's an issue. Cash playing on the right, he can play there, but we should have better options. And clearly Emery as well, I don't think he trusts Tim just yet, because for me the option would have been Rodgers comes out, Tim plays midfield, and you bump McGinn up. Yeah. That would, I think, be kind of like the obvious option, which Emery of course knows and sees, but he chose to go elsewhere.
Imagine he hadn't thought of that.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to where we go in the summer and what we can do. As I say, I think we'll be in a better place.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a whole podcast about that because this conversation is already taken over this Q&A element, and we're going to go through these injuries now in a second.
Keep me on track.
Yeah. It was Caroline who sent me the list of injured players and how many games they'd missed. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players who have missed more than 10 games this season. Buendia and Mings obviously skew it a little bit, having missed 53 and 52 games respectively. But Jacob Ramsey missed 30 games, Kamara 21, Moreno 17, Duran 13, Zaniolo 13. Those are the ones above 10. Now, Moreno and Duran might be rotation options, but not having them as rotation options is a difficulty in itself, isn't it?
That's the issue.
Yeah. Zaniolo, Duran, Moreno are probably your three kind of, can they come on and change the game? So when they're not even there, what are you left with? Yeah. Tielemans is on 8, Carlos 7, Dean 7, Conte Martinez 4, Watkins Bailey 2. So from that end, Watkins and Martinez, two of our most important players. They've been fortunate not to miss many games. But when you look through that list, the figure here is 238. I don't know whether that's correct or not. 238 games missed by first team players. Mm-hmm. The fact we're fourth is mad because we shouldn't be. The squad that we've had available and going far in Europe shouldn't be fourth.
And you're right, we've played in Europe as well. This isn't just the Tottenham season where they can play 38 games or whatever.
Or we got knocked out in the group stage in Europe ended in November. Like, whether we get through to the final or not, it doesn't matter in terms of affecting the league form because the final is after the league anyway. We've played the maximum amount in Europe that you can do during the season and still manage to compete for fourth as well.
It's also our first full season under Unai Emery, and it's our first European campaign as a club for... I'd almost put it as our first for basically... It's not our first, but no one at the club would have... within the club is aware. Do you know what I mean? We haven't done this for a very long time. this is, as Emery said in a press conference recently, this is just kind of like the start of the project, really. And he's bang on. Like, we kind of get lost of, well, we've made such progression. Well, it's only 18 months ago that he joined the club, and obviously he agreed to a contract extension to 2027. The club will sit down with him in the summer. So there's a lot that's going to happen from now in the next 6 months, let alone another 18 months and 18 months after that. So yeah, like, kind of just fasten your seatbelt sort of thing and enjoy the ride. Like, it's gonna be something that we can enjoy, but it's key that, I don't know, this is a bit of like a strange link, but our recruitment is important from now, because
100%.
Every top team, it goes through cycles, if that makes sense. I.e., last season, Alex Moreno was player of the season, and we thought, well, this is it. The way we play, Alex Moreno, we bombing down the left, and then all of a sudden he picks up an injury and he's been kind of sparingly used this season because of that, and his impact hasn't been so much. Luca Dean has now stepped up. We're playing Pau Torres on the halfway line. Things are going to change next season. I don't doubt something else will happen, and but it's crucial that while Emery evolves and changes, that the players who come in are the right players to be in that system. Rodgers, for example, was clearly, that's good recruitment, very strong recruitment. That needs to keep happening for Villa to, as I say, bolster their squad and be in a position where they can continue to compete and allow Emery to do what he's doing. That's the important bit. If we can bolster the squad, then next season I don't have any concern that we'd be able to have a go in the Champions League, and by that I mean try and qualify for the knockouts. And compete for another top 6 finish. Europa League for me would be the kind of the benchmark. Getting that would be a good season, I think, in my head, because Champions League for me is just enjoy it. Like, this season's been such a...
You're already answering questions that are coming up on the running order. Yeah.
Okay. I'll shut up now. But a lot's going through my head. So yeah, to answer the question that you asked, yeah, it's remarkable that we're in the position we're in, and it's not going to receive enough credit elsewhere, I don't think. But I think it takes fans, and only fans sometimes, to look properly into it and experience what's happened, because we're the ones who look at the subs bench and think, oh, what's going to change something today? And there's nothing there, really.
Yeah. That's not to disrespect the players that are
we've kind of experienced the season closely.
Yeah.
Right.
We're going to talk about midfield now. Ian says, we've touched on this before because John is answering multiple questions in one go. With us obviously lacking energy in midfield, should Unai start Tim Irabunum and allow McGinn to play further forward where he is most effective? And Noel follows up by saying, thoughts on whether Unai trusts Tim? Doesn't look like it, but could be wrong. So I'll just repeat the bit that you said.
I'm only laughing because I already said something similar. I don't think he trusts him just yet, and I don't think
trust him is a weird phrase, isn't it? Because that makes it sound like there's something wrong with him. It's just that he doesn't see that
at this stage of his development and in the matches that we've played, there's been opportunities for Tim to play, and Emery said in January that this is his opportunity to kind of stake a claim, not necessarily replace Kamara, but have more opportunities in the team, and he hasn't had them really. I thought when he came on against Chelsea he did well, but then Conor Gallagher puts one in the top corner and should have been closed down, I'm pretty sure, by Tim. So in those moments, that's probably what Unai's seeing on the training pitch or through his experience of managing for 20 years or something. In those moments, those are the crucial bits. Yeah. And Tim is a very good player for his age and definitely has a lot of potential. He has a high ceiling. I don't think he trusts him quite yet, and that isn't. Sounds very negative, like to the point of like, oh, will he go or whatever. I don't think it's that. It's just that he needs a bit more time, I suppose. Experience elsewhere, I don't know. Unai knows what's best for Tim, put it that way, not me.
Yeah.
But I think we can all see that there's been opportunities for him to play, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah, when you've got Kamara injured, Louise and McGinn have both been suspended at different intervals, and Irabunum's still not starting games in the Premier League, then when is he going to...
Yeah, as I say, he had the option to bring Tim on and not disrupt Bailey or the way the other players were playing. But then when Cash does come on, that does disrupt what we're doing and how we play and how we operate in the final third, just because of kind of one injury. So I think that, as I said earlier, I think that kind of explains where he's at with Tim. So yeah, the midfield for me at the moment is, I think it's clear that there's a bit of an issue there. I don't think Louise and McGinn complement each other quite well in the way that we play. But as I say, we're 2 games away from the league finishing. You'd hope that we can just limp over the line from here. I say limp over the line. Still going to take a mammoth effort just to get through it. So get over the line. We're not going to be playing our best football in the next 2 games. But say in the summer, I'd like to think that a new holding midfielder comes in. Kamara will step up his fitness and could be back in training by like September.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's not a massive concern for me because I think Villa will deal with it. As I say, in the summer, bring in someone new that Emery wants, and that would allow McGinn to play further forward from next season. Where I keep saying, I think that's the position that he needs to play in. And Tielemans could return on Thursday. That could be a big help as well.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Okay, sorry, I stumbled over that question. Jesus.
Paul says, he's done it again. The midfield 2 of Louise Kamara looks fantastic, as does Tielemans and McGinn. So what are your thoughts on why Louise and McGinn doesn't look right?
Don't ask me to explain it.
It is.
I think this is funny. I feel like us as Villa fans, we all have the same.
Same train of thought.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why we're.
I kind of feel like Louise does his thing right, but McGinn's physicality in midfield is actually something that we miss in obviously Kamara, and he can kind of throw his weight around a little bit. I think from that instance it does work, but Louise is not his normal self without Kamara next to him, and he can't do the things that he is good at with anyone else really.
No, Louise is limited because I don't know whether it's either confidence or maybe mental thing. I'm not sure about him progressing or going a bit further or whatever it may be, taking on an opponent, taking risks, because Kamara isn't behind him, because he knows that if one pass doesn't come off, Kamara will be there nipping at someone's heels and either making a foul, which is okay, to stop a counter-attack, or just winning the ball back, whatever it may be, whereas McGinn is more, hustle and bustle. He takes risks himself. And I think Louise probably thinks, well, if McGinn backs into opponent and he might lose the ball or whatever it may be. He does do a bit too much sometimes, McGinn, and quite often it does pay off for Villa because it beats the press and he can spin a player and Villa can go from there. But I think Louise, in his head, he's probably thinking, well, I've got to cover kind of 2 roles now again, like he was previously under other managers, and Tielemans is probably more safe with the ball than McGinn, for example. He can move it quicker. I think he probably sees pictures a bit quicker, which, I guess nothing against McGinn. McGinn's a very different player to Tielemans, very different to Kamara. Is exceptional at certain things, and I think those things are needed further forward. So, it's not an ideal situation, but as I say, we've got 2 games left of the season now. It's not a massive issue for me, because I think in the summer, surely we won't be in a position where we only have 2 midfielders again. And again,
you'd like to think so.
We have Tim, of course, but kind of ruling him out of starting matches at the moment because Emery clearly isn't willing to play him in.
If Champions League is wrapped up before the final day, maybe Tim can play against Palace.
Maybe have
just for fun.
Man of the match performance, yeah. But next season, McGinn and Louise, I don't think will be starting in double pivot with each other. So that's why I'm not particularly fussed about it right now. There's not much else we could do apart from playing Tim. But again, Emery works with the players every day and analyses football much more and much better than us. So he knows what he's doing.
Okay. Ty says, I love Ollie Watkins, but feel we need another A-list striker for the Champions League. So question is Duran enough, or should we spend big on a poacher style or hold-up type player to partner Watkins next season? I don't see an out-and-out striker partnering Watkins, do you?
No, and I don't think big money either is needed on a centre forward. For me, no. I think there's value in the market if you can get an experienced player.
Cameron Archer?
If you get an experienced player for low cost, maybe that would probably be what I'd look at. But I've said before, I don't think Duran is a bad option from the bench. Ollie Watkins will start all the Premier League games and all the Champions League games. I think we've got to remember that. I know that's quite a big load, but so will, if Louise stays, so will Louise, so will I was about to say so will Torres, but maybe someone else would for some European games. I don't know, but again, the top clubs will play their best 11 in Premier League games and Champions League matches. It's just when players are tired, you'll bring someone off the bench, and I think Duran is okay at that. I don't think we have to look at kind of matching the quality of players that we have in the squad,
You're
because
not going to get another Ollie Watkins anyway.
simply we're not going to afford it. Yeah, so that's why I think if you can find a good deal somewhere with an experienced player, we obviously have a youngster in Duran who can learn or is learning. So yeah, I don't think there's a big need to kind of splash the cash on a player who basically won't be playing very often. And again, if Watkins gets injured, then I understand that. But that's why you'd have an experienced player, and Duran, you can pick either basically then.
Yeah. If Watkins is going to be partnered by somebody, for me, that's like a number 10 forward.
Well, that
kind
disrupts
of
the
player,
whole
isn't it, as
system.
well?
And I just don't see that happening. Two strikers next season playing in the same pitch, unless it's Duran who comes on or someone else. On Archer, I presume he would be sold.
Yeah, you don't think so.
Don't think there's a future for him at Villa, and as I say, Villa would have to raise a bit of money anyway. So any players that they can sell, they will. Then Donker, Archer, Chambers wouldn't go for a lot of money, if any. So yeah, there's a few players who will be leaving for certain.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll do a squad kind of
Yeah.
assessment maybe in a couple of weeks' time. Luke says, if you've got a fully fit squad, what is your back four? Is it a back four? Do you change it up? Are you going back three?
I think it depends on the opposition, to be fair, but more often than not, Can I go from left to right? Because I think
If
that's
you
the
like,
issue.
yeah.
Luca Dean, Pau Torres. Obviously, it's either Ezri Konsa right back and Carlos centre back, or it's Konsa and Cash.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the opponent, if I'm being honest. We've beaten top teams by playing Konsa at right back and Carlos at centre back because it works in those matches. But then in other games, I think we've been a bit limited going forward, and we can get caught out as well, depending on who we're playing against. So I don't think there's one way of doing it, and I think Emery will tell you that as well, because that's why he's played Konsa at right back.
Yeah.
He wants two different profiles, doesn't he? He doesn't have that at left back, but I don't think that's needed when you have Torres, who can control that area of the pitch on the left. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens in the summer regarding that, because I've said before I would like another option that isn't Konsa, because Konsa for me is such a sensational centre back.
Yeah.
And he can do the right back bit, but can we not use Konsa, who isn't, as I say, an excellent defender, in his best position, and then can we maybe buy someone who can play that right back role similar to how Konsa has, or offer the same attributes, but without kind of disrupting Konsa.
I think you build your kind of back five, including the goalkeeper, as Martinez, Konsa,
and
Torres as
yeah,
a three.
That's what I'm trying to explain.
I'd be curious as to whether either of the fullbacks you mentioned there will be here next year.
Yep, possibly. Say Luca Dean's on a big wage and he's been exceptional for us this season, but if Villa...
So his value's high.
If Villa feel like they can recruit someone else without taking quality down or even adapting how they play, then there'll be discussions to be had about almost all of the players.
Yeah.
I say almost. With several players, shall I say, across the team who are either earning a lot or who Emery feels that he can add competition to, and therefore does he need two of the same player in the team, for example. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer. I'd love to know. I'd love to kind of skip to the deadline day and see what business we've done. Obviously, but do you know what I mean? It's
kind of the not known.
A lot is in the air. Is what I'm trying to say. A lot is up in the air, and yeah, I have full faith that we'll be okay coming out of it. But I'm just interested to see certain positions and certain ways that we could play as well. It's going to be interesting.
Dave says, "Hi guys, in your opinion, what would be a good season next year?" You kind of started to answer this earlier. I think you were going to say Europa League. Is that what you could go for?
A
good season?
I'm not going to say Europa League. What I said this season, I'll stick with again. With a few games remaining, for Villa to be in the top six or in and around that conversation. For example, Newcastle have had a really tricky season, but then they're a couple of points off Tottenham. Not a couple, 4 maybe.
Newcastle are on 56.
5.
Tottenham are on 60.
There you go. So they're 4 points off Tottenham. Tottenham are in 5th.
And 5th could be Champions League next year.
Exactly. We're going back into it. Go Fishing FC. Yeah. But that is my case in point about how a season is so long. But a couple of decent results, and you're up there.
I think I would have thought in January, say, that Newcastle were probably going to finish 8th or something.
And this is the Newcastle season. This season is how I thought Villa's season would go, because I thought dealing with Europe would be difficult for a lot of our players. Not Emery, but it's using his experiences and putting it onto his players. He's done that seamlessly, literally without an issue. So yeah, this season's been sensational for us. As I said before, I just want to enjoy the Champions League. There's no expectation for us to win it, or you know what, there probably is from some fans. But yeah, can we just enjoy it? Enjoy the experiences we're going to have. Win our home games in that league stage. Go to somewhere like the Bernabeu or the Allianz or wherever. Just enjoy the experience, and it's going to be huge for the club in terms of revenue, sponsorship, eyes on Aston Villa again.
Yeah.
And then in the league, be part of that top 7, and then a couple of wins might bring you to 6th. With 3 games remaining, you might be 3 points out of 5th, which could be Champions League. That's the kind of season I expect.
Yeah.
And yeah, one that we can enjoy again. This season's been kind of, and we've been, I think criticised a little bit for being maybe negative, or you're kind of overthinking it too much about Villa have to get Champions League, and if we drop out, then it's like such a big frustration. But that's because we're so close to achieving it. If we were coming from the Newcastle position now, it would be like you're kind of punching upwards, aren't you? You're thinking, oh, we could do it, and the pressure's off us. But we've been there all season. It would feel like a bit of a disaster, really, if we don't get it, because we've got hopes up for it now, and that's just.
You've got your heart set on
that's
trip
a
to the
human
Bernabeu,
psyche. Like, that's just an emotion. So, next year I think will probably be more of the previous year when we were kind of punching up to something, and it will feel more like we could do this, and if we do, it'll be fantastic, rather than all right, we've got to maintain this to finish 4th. God, if we were to finish 4th next year and already be playing in the Champions League, that's. I wouldn't expect that, put it that way. I'm just quite shocked, because I
think that'd be a brilliant season to finish 4th again. You want to be in the Champions League now forever, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously.
But we'll have the experience next year, and it'll be great. And yeah, we'll want more of it. But I also just think, like, we know that we're going to be in Europe. All right. Yeah. I'd like to think we're going to be in Europe for as long as Unai Emery's here, because he's been in it for. Next year will be his 17th year in a row. Whether it's Europa League, then okay, we'll have a crack at it. We could probably win it, maybe.
That's my thing. I think we need to just be in Europe now.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Like you say, whilst Emery's here.
And Emery keeps saying that himself. Like, whether it's, we want to be in the Champions League for the revenue, and because, it'd be nice to play Real Madrid, wouldn't it? But ultimately, we're going to win it? Probably not. We might even get to the point where it's like, well, Europa League, I'm happy with that, because we're playing against teams who we're more likely to beat and more likely to win a trophy.
Yeah.
And that might be like a new thing that we want, rather than going to, other big clubs again, but we might get knocked out in the league stage. I think
Newcastle are probably a little bit like that, to be fair.
I think so,
To be
possibly.
like, oh, okay, we've had a taste of Champions League. We got beat a lot, like we didn't. It was a good experience, but I know Newcastle obviously got a couple of results. But let's say we get into it and we lose all 8 games, for example, in this league phase, which would be bad. But let's say that's what happens. We kind of go, well, we've kind of scratched that Champions League bug now. Scratched the itch of the Champions League thing.
Scratching a bug.
We've got two cliches mixed up there. But you're right. You might think, we've done Champions League now.
Yeah.
Let's go and win the Europa League. Well, that's the new target. We've dropped down, but we can do better.
And that's because we're like Newcastle, for example. I absolutely get what you're saying, but they didn't quite have the experience, because they did. They went to the San Siro, the Dortmund Stadium, to PSG, kind of group of death, but also great experiences. But then they lost most games, and we'll be playing 2 extra games than them anyway. So we're kind of getting like the full Monty, if that makes sense, like for the Champions League if we get it. But you're right. It'll be like, that was a brilliant experience. What a season. But we've got the Europa League next year, and we'll be going to still some top teams.
Yeah. We had some top teams in the Conference League.
We have a coach who's won this competition 4 times. Well, we might win it. So that's my, and I don't think that will change either. No. Even if we got to like the quarterfinal of the Champions League, maybe that might change actually.
Say, yeah.
But do you see where I'm at? It's like,
You've got
we
to,
would be
you've got
the
to be in
massively
Europe, yeah.
To win the Champions League. Goodness me, like you've got to be.
Is it easier to win the Champions League or win the Premier League?
Easier to win the Champions League.
Yeah, which is mad, isn't it?
The word easier isn't the right word. Is
No,
it?
but it's less games and a bit of luck.
Yeah, like Dortmund, for example.
Yeah.
Well, winning the semi-final, like in the fifth in the Bundesliga, which is the same. But they've got, as a club, experiences. They've got experienced players. They go to Newcastle and win 1-0, and it was like, oh, actually, Newcastle might not even go far in this because you need know-how.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be building. So, yeah, Champions League next year, if we can get it, fantastic. Let's just enjoy it. I'm not going to kick up a fuss if we don't progress or if we lose a couple of games. You know, we're here, enjoy the moment, because this season we've been working so hard to just get the experience. We just got to enjoy it. We're probably not going to win it, but that's okay. And then if in the league, come the end of the season, we're in a decent position to be getting in Europe. If we can get to Europa League or even finish fifth, and that's Champions League, fantastic. Because that's just the ride that you're on now for a few years, hopefully, with Emery. Different competitions maybe, but the same thing of playing in Europe. Hopefully winning stuff.
Yeah, you always want to be in the top 7 at least, so you're in some kind of European competition. Yeah. But the points tally is more important. If you were to finish 7th and 5th was Champions League, which, let's face it, I think this year is probably going to be one of the few years that 5th isn't the Champions League. If you finish 7th and you're 3 points off 5th, and you've had a Champions League campaign and got to the first knockout round or whatever, you go, okay, we finished 7th, we're in the Conference League now, which, to be fair, again, let's try go and winning it. We're only 3 points off getting back into the Champions League again, and that's the level you want to be at.
Exactly. It's all about being consistent. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'd have thought that the first knockout round in the Champions League would be February, maybe.
Something like that.
Maybe like the first week of March, based off what we're doing in the Conference League.
A bit earlier, maybe?
Yeah, but between then, it'd be after January, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, my point is that you've probably got like 2 months. I don't know how many games that would be. Maybe like 10 games left of the season. That's more than enough time just to go from Saturday to Saturday to Saturday.
Yeah.
We know what Emery can do with 1 day of preparation. So, we could be so many points out of 6th, which I don't think would be the case. But then we can make it up because we're quite good.
Right, we're at the silly end of the podcast. We've done a lot of serious discussion, to be fair. First one from Ian says, Dan, you can have a meeting with Matt Kendrick and discuss potentially being given a press conference pass for a full season, but you've got more work to do for that season. Or John Townley will get you in for one random game. What would I choose?
Can Matt sort you the press conference pass? I think that's the question.
The most likely scenario is I would not get a press conference pass ever again, so that's not going to happen. If you could get me for one, would you like me there at the press conferences? Would that be useful to you?
I'll put you on the spot. What would be your question for Emery this Thursday?
So this is the thing. In Greece. I don't think I would be a question asker.
What would you do then?
I think I would help you make better things there.
I don't build things. I don't make Lego.
I mean content. Make better content. I think if we could go together, we could do videos there and
in the press conference.
Not during the press conference, but like after, we could have a chat and we could be out body more. And
I don't think we'd be loud.
I could film you doing.
Well, there needs
to.
Firstly, you need to have a broadcast agreement.
I do have a press passing in my wallet, but
with Villa, you've right.
Not gonna happen. Is the blunt answer.
Yeah, like in an ideal world, that would be the case, but
yeah, it's not going to happen.
There's Premier League rules and stuff. There's a lot of rules in football.
If you get me for one random game, I'd want it to be like the biggest game of the season. Like, what's the point? Like the Greece one, you said it was very busy. Like, get me into that one.
Oh yeah, the Greece one was a lot of Greek people. A lot of Greek people asking me for the Wi-Fi password, and then it didn't come up on the laptops, and I was like,
not your problem, John. Really, is it?
No, but
other people to do that.
Felt the burden, to be honest. And it was quite intimidating as well. No, I'm joking. Looking forward to going to Greece.
I think we need to end with an animal-related question. Okay, I found one. It's the classic. You get £10 million for the rest of your life. There is a super snail that is invincible.
I've heard of this one.
And kills you if it touches you.
Yeah.
It follows you, trying to kill you forever. It can board a plane, etc.
Yep.
So what would you do? Are you taking the money and accepting this challenge, or are you just denying the right to forget the money? I don't want to kill a snail after me.
Take the money, 100%.
You take the money?
Yeah, it's pretty
So you think for the rest
Isn't it
of your...
pretty simple?
How old are you, 24?
Yeah.
So let's say you live to 84, 60 more years.
Mhm.
Hopefully it's longer, of course, but for maths. You think you could outrun this snail for 60 years?
Fly to Australia. How long is it going to take for him to get to me?
Well, if he can get on a plane, similar time as it took you.
I don't know about that.
Well, obviously, like slightly longer to slither its way to the plane station, the airport.
How long? All right, seriously, how long would that take?
Well, it depends.
So
where they
I
are.
was of the thought it was more of like a hypothetical.
If they've got to make
Like-
their own way to Australia without a plane, obviously it's going to take 1 billion years, isn't it? But if they can slither up from Birmingham to Birmingham Airport
They ain't getting on a plane.
and then get on the
They're
plane,
not getting on a plane.
the flight will take the same amount of time as it took you, but it will maybe take them 2 weeks to get on to
Right,
to the
if-
airport.
I was thinking more like if I had this. It depends how long you have. If you have like about a month, I'd take the money for sure.
Like a bit of prep.
Yeah, because all you got to do is just spend one day in the month flying from the other side of the world to the other.
But then what if like that? Surely the
You wouldn't forget.
no, you wouldn't forget. But that's the thing. Surely like the everlasting paranoia of what if it's time that it has caught up. Like what if you're sitting now doing the podcast and I see the snail on that sofa?
Honestly, it depends what the stipulation is. If it's I know that it's going to take this long, and he hasn't taken a different mode of transport. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. You wouldn't know, would you?
If it's completely unknown, if I don't know how long he's going to take to get to me, then yeah, I wouldn't take the money.
Okay.
But I was thinking more of because sometimes they help you out and they say like, oh, the snail will take this amount of time to get to you or whatever. Then I feel like you could just stay clear of it. But if it's completely unknown, I'd prefer my freedom over money.
Yeah. I would capture the snail.
Capture the snail.
I'd
Yeah.
put it in a jar or something.
This is it. You cracked it really.
And it doesn't say in the title like you can't harm the snail or anything. I could keep it
there's no
alive. Like
you don't have a restriction order.
no. If
So-
it was that, like, some of these are very different, and they have like stipulations on various different clauses and stuff.
Yeah.
If the snail dies, you die. Well, obviously, in that sense, that's obviously bad. But I could keep the snail alive. I could have like a premium fish tank thing with like lead
Yeah.
lined, keep it safe, like a safe, that's never going to get out. And I've always got to keep an eye on it, make sure it's within not touching distance. Oh, I'm in control then, aren't I?
Or
Rather than kind of thinking, is this the day that he
or
creeps
could
up
you
on me?
just say to a friend,
So I could say to you, like,
can
I've
you
got this
just
snail in a
keep
jar.
the snail in
Can you
in a
keep this
cupboard?
alive? Would you? Would you do that if I asked?
Yeah, it's just slug in the cupboard, and I'd slug in the cupboard, and I'd ask for some money because you've made a lot of money doing
Yeah,
that.
that's fine.
But
How much would
you
you
know, to
want?
save your life, half.
That was so quick. You want 5 million to... to be fair, that's not bad.
You could work with someone on it, couldn't you?
Because that's, to me, that's a free 5
Or-
million, just like no stress at all.
Or you
done.
could just, you'd have to have a conversation. Or your close family member,
Yeah.
they'd do it.
I think it's better to be in control than going, like, it's going to take this now 10 weeks to get to Australia. If you knew it was going to take that long,
Yeah.
I'd go on week 9.
Yeah.
I'd go off to Florida for a bit and then kind of keep going around.
Yeah, like my answer, I feel a bit silly now because I think you're right. If you just ask a friend, hi, have you got a lock and a key? There you go.
What if it kills any human rather than it just kills me and now you're in danger as well?
Well, if it's lucky, it was anything. Well, no, you wouldn't take the money.
No.
Well, I wouldn't say it on a podcast anyway. You know what, right? So here's the plan. You would say to a friend, this is the money you're going to get, and they'd take $1 million, because that's just life-changing.
10%.
Put it in a box, in a jar, whatever, done. And then you just... but it'd be difficult to lose contact with your friend. What, a stranger? No. 'Cause
Strangers
just
wouldn't do it, would they? I don't think.
My
if
thought
someone-
process was you'd just... No, you know what? It would have to be someone that you trust, because you would live in fear that they would smash the jar by accident.
Yeah, I
and lose
moved
the
house
snail.
and thought, don't bring that jar with the
Yeah, so
slime in
it
it.
needs to be
Leave that here.
someone that you trust, so a close family member. And yeah, that's the hack.
Problem solved once again
Problem
from
solved.
you and I.
Yeah. We've gone 4 out of 4.
Lots of serious football chat as always, but it's good to kind of. It feels like a decompression to the episode for me to end it on a a silly note. Sometimes it gets a bit heavy.
Yeah, you had so much thought process.
Although we take the silly stuff very seriously.
Probably more seriously.
But it's nice to kind of just relax on that. So thank you to everyone who got involved with sending questions for this episode. Much appreciated. Thank you, John, for joining in on this episode on a bank holiday Monday. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah. We don't do bank holidays, do we? So
I said this to my wife and my wife. Still weird. And my family, like they were saying, so I'm going round to my mum's after for like a little bit of a barbecue buffet thing.
I hope you're off.
Like, oh, what time are you coming? No one's going to watch the end of this, so it doesn't matter. But it's like, I was like, well, I'm working, so it's bank holidays. Yeah, but it's football, isn't it? You work bank holidays more often not, because normally a bank holiday means there's football on, like an Easter or Good Friday, whatever. Whereas obviously this one there isn't. So there's still work to do. So we're still here. But this video will come out, this podcast will come out on Bank Holiday Monday. So if you're listening in the garden with a beer or whatever, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Some good stuff discussed, I think. So John, thank you for joining me as always. Thank you for watching or listening. We've got loads coming up this week as we look ahead to Olympiacos and Liverpool. So stay with us, stay subscribed, and we'll see you then.